Hey guys, welcome back to Coffee and Questions. I'm so glad that you could join us today. Remember, the Coffee and Questions, we like to answer your questions and try to just talk about whatever your questions are, about Christianity or the Bible or whatever. And today I actually thought I'd answer one of my own questions, and my own question was, Thanksgiving is coming up. It's about a week away, and I thought, man, what is it that drove the Pilgrims to, leave, to emigrate out of the England and eventually end up in the United States? And what is it that really causes that? I know, of course, we all know that, right? They wanted to worship in the way that they would be allowed to, and they couldn't in England, and so they left. And but what? What was it that they believed? What was it that caused them to make these decisions, to leave? Was it some big thought, some big theological reason, something strong and like, all right, you believe that something wrong about God, and we believe the right thing about God, a big debate between Calvinism and Arminianism or something like that. What was it that caused them? What beliefs brought them to this point? And so I thought I'd do some research on this and just kind of, why? Why did they leave? And what was interesting to me is that really they weren't all that different, theologically speaking, from the Church of England. There just wasn't a lot of strong theological differences. They'd both fall into kind of the Calvinistic, Reformed theological standpoint or view of the Bible, and so they were Calvinists, to stay the same. But their biggest concern wasn't so much a strong theological point as it was how worship was being done, and so they struggled with some of the things that the way the Anglican Church was being run. And their worry was, or their thought was, that the Anglican Church hadn't gone far enough away from the Roman Catholic Church. And remember, Protestantism was pretty young at this point in time, and these Puritans believed that the Anglican Church, the Church of England, needed to go further in their separation from the Catholic Church. That too much of the worship style and the worship elements reflected the Catholic Church still, and so they called themselves Puritans because they wanted to purify the church from this. And some of it dealt with the dress that they used, the way the clergy dressed. Some of it had to do with the use of the cross, and a lot of it did have to do with this sense of living a sober life. And that didn't strictly have to do with alcohol, although the indications are some of them did drink alcohol, but they did hold to the idea that the Bible teaches you shouldn't get drunk, which I think that's very much true. That's in the Bible. But sober beyond that, even sober dealing with how you dress and how you live and things like that. And the problem really arose from the fact that, not so much from the theological issues, from what I could tell, but the fact that they wanted to run worship services in a way that they felt was acceptable. All right, they wanted to do communion. Some of them did believe in believers' baptism as opposed to infant baptism. So there were some things that were different, but the way they handled communion was a little bit different and things like that. The Puritans weren't exactly a collective group that had written down like this is what we believe and created a standard by which you could say this is a Puritan, this is Anglican. And they were just collections of people. In fact, some of them believed that there should be no denominations whatsoever. So the real issue didn't come from theological side of things. Actually, the real issue was with the rulers of England at the time. When Queen Elizabeth very much held to this. She kind of walked the line of having separated from the Catholic Church, but not wanting to go too far from the Catholic Church. And there's this sense that both Elizabeth, good old Queen Liz, and King Jimmy, who followed her, they both wanted a sense of control over over the church. They wanted to be the head of the church. And in fact, James, who was king in Scotland before he became king in England, who followed Queen Elizabeth, he had some real struggles with the Presbyterians that were up in Scotland, because they were ruled by elders, and there wasn't this overarching system of bishops and things like that he ultimately could control. And he believed very strongly that the power of the king needed to be consolidated, and he needed to have more power in order for the kingship to work. And so this created issues. Queen Elizabeth, she passed some laws early on in her time as queen that restricted worship. And actually it made it a law that was required for people to they had to attend the Church of England on Sundays and on holy days. Otherwise, they would get fined. If they conducted services separate from the church, then they could be thrown in prison. Eventually, some people were actually killed for doing this in the late 1590s, somewhere in the 1600s. I don't have all the dates in front of me, so I don't know everything about it, but one of them that did end up being executed, he was the one that said, "Hey, we need to get out of here." He kind of encouraged emigration so that people could worship the way in which they felt was necessary. And so that of course, they went to Holland. They were in Holland for like 13 years and didn't like what was happening to the kids. So finally they had the opportunity to hop on the Mayflower and take that terrible, badly timed trip across the Atlantic and set up the Plymouth colony, and killing most of the people who went aboard, but the children survived, and all of the stuff that we already know about the Mayflower and the Plymouth and Thanksgiving and things like that. So that was my thoughts. I thought that was kind of particularly interesting, why they would choose to emigrate, and really it boiled down to freedom of religion. Freedom from being oppressed by those who were ruling over any real theological choice per se. If you're interested, I did check into, as I was doing the research, I pulled out my old Story of Christianity textbook from college by Dr. Justo Gonzalez, I'm guessing. He can probably answer all your questions a lot better than I can, but if you're interested in studying more of that, you want to know more about the history of Christianity, he's got a couple volumes that detail the history of Christianity, and so I'm sure you would, if that's something interesting to you, you'd enjoy those. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. If you got any other questions about the Pilgrims, or about belief systems, and what does these people believe as opposed to those people believe, or just questions in general about Christianity or the Bible, I'd be more than interested in helping to answer those questions. Thanks for hanging out today, guys, and we'll see you later.